This programme was produced at and first aired on MPR, Manawatu People's Radio, with support from New Zealand On Air. Ka pai Irarangi Te Motu, MPR.
Kia ora and welcome to Reserved Recommendations, a show about problematic faves, great trash, difficult art, and our complex relationship with art and entertainment. My name's Hugh, I'm the host, and I'd like to put in a very mild content warning for this show as a whole. Sometimes our recommendations on this show are reserved just because the thing that we're discussing is in some way not good. But sometimes there are aspects to the art or artist that may be confronting for some people. Read the episode descriptions for more information and do be aware of your listening environment. Hello and welcome to Reserved Recommendations. This is a show about great trash and problematic faves and difficult art. And I am joined this evening by Brendan Christie. How's it going, Brendan? How are you feeling?
Very good, thanks, Hugh. I'm having a great night. It's been a busy day, busy week, mental couple of weeks, but we're all coming out the end of it now and starting to feel a lot better now. Yeah.
That is excellent to hear. And kind of the opposite of the thing that we're going to talk about today. I basically approached you to come on this podcast out of the blue because I saw you make a post on Facebook about the Adam Sandler movie Uncut Gems.
That's correct.
Which I kind of did want to talk to someone about in the context of this show because it's the kind of movie that you could only ever make a reserved recommendation for. Because
it really is.
It is incredibly stressful to watch. I don't know how long it is, but it's however long that is of anxiety attack, just watching Adam Sandler wreck his life and make things worse and worse and worse.
I can tell you how long it is. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes of stress.
Yeah, and you will feel every single second of that. So I guess maybe a place to start from with this movie is do you ordinarily like Adam Sandler at all?
So Adam Sandler is very much a Nicolas Cage for me. He is very much has movies which I love and think are hilarious, particularly some of his comedies, and even some of his romances. I think The Wedding Singer is a classic. I thought that was good. I liked Happy Gilmore. I thought was hilarious. And The Waterboy I thought was up there as well. So there are times when his comedy is amazing. And then there's a lot of trash. So you are throwing the dice if you choose an Adam Sandler movie. He is a pretty mono-dimensional character at the best of times. I think he's at the same time, sometimes I'm just in an Adam Sandler mood and he couldn't be better for it. So,
well, I mean, that's fair enough. I guess the reason that I asked that question is that I haven't actually seen Happy Gilmore, but I did really like The Wedding Singer, and I have really liked some of, particularly kind of his earlier comedies. I feel like I tend to enjoy more. But often,
right, like I said, stand-up, you mean, or his movie?
Oh no, I mean,
he did a bit of stand-up for a time.
Yeah, I think he did like comedy songs for a while as well.
He
did like a reggae song about how bad his car was or something. I
at a medium pace, which is about stuff that I wouldn't recommend listening to for a family show if you're aiming for that.
But I guess the thing that struck me is that with some of his later comedy movies, I kind of feel like he plays this really awful person, and the movie kind of rewards him for it, and he never kind of learns anything or grows or changes, and he just kind of gets what he wants by magic. I felt like that was a good point of comparison for Uncut Gems, because he's kind of playing the same kind of person, except that he doesn't get away with it all.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know how we're going down the road with spoilers in this movie, but it is...
I kind of don't believe in spoilers, so I guess maybe we'll put up here we might well, I'm not necessarily planning on it, but we might well spoil the heck out of Uncut Gems. So it's on Netflix if you want to watch it. Go do that and come back. This is going to be a podcast, so you can like pause it on your phone and come back.
Yeah, it's conveniently categorized under the categories of gritty and forceful. So yeah, under the genres of crime movies, crime dramas, and just dramas. So, which is unlike Adam Sandler. Normally, he's ludicrous in comedy, and again, just ridiculous. But in this case, it's 100 miles an hour of 2 hours and 15 minutes of just stress and trying to work out what's going on and trying to hear what people are saying over really loud music, but also a lot of people talking over each other at the same time, and trying to calculate where the crime is, because you know that there's crime going on somewhere along the lines, although because nothing seems legit, nothing at all. I mean, any business he's sort of been touching in this particular movie doesn't seem to be at all linked to any kind of straight up business. But but then trying to decipher exactly where is the criminal aspect of this going on, and why is it so shady when it actually could be a legitimate thing. So yeah, there's a bit of working out to do, especially in the early stages of the film.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, that's kind of a key thing about the character and the way that he's lived his life, is that he kind of forces that ambiguity and makes it everybody else's problem to figure out whether what he's doing is on the level or not. And that's clearly worked for him up till this point, because he's clearly been doing it for a while. Yeah,
and like he's a jeweler, so I think he sells jewels and gems, and that's hence the name of the movie. You're thrown into this deep end of this ocean of crap that he's trying to wade his way through and come out on top of, and navigate through a number of different characters and figure out who they are and how they relate to him, and again, coming back to that kind of shady business, not sure whether what he's doing is you should appreciate and back him with, but also, or just think he's a horrible person. And the movie kind of ebbs and flows between what you are thinking. And I mean, in Love or Hate Adam Sandler, this is quite an amazing, I think he stood out quite well in this role, because it is a role where he has actually kind of grasped with both hands. He's been the perfect character for it. The perfect actor for the character, and able to basically be everything that the movie's asking of him. So it's the first time that I've really seen Adam Sandler do that for something that I don't think he directed it, did he? He hasn't had any involvement on that level.
I don't think he did, no. Which is, I mean, it's kind of unusual, because mostly what you see Adam Sandler in these days are like Adam Sandler comedy projects where he has, pretty close to 100% creative control, largely casts his friends so that they can all hang out together somewhere.
And just a disclaimer, this one does not involve Rob Schneider, anyone. So if you can go in safely knowing that you won't have a Rob Schneider experience with this film.
No, that's one of those things that you kind of do need a content warning for, is things that contain Rob Schneider. You would also, I guess, take consolation from the fact that if Rob Schneider was in this movie, something like just unbelievably awful would happen to him, and it wouldn't be played for laughs. It would just kind of happen, and the movie would keep going and going faster.
Yeah, that's in a nutshell, really. So I guess, sorry.
Oh no, I was going to say, I guess the other reason that I kind of wanted to ask about the comedy a bit is that you could almost see the initial premise of the way that this movie is as being like the setup for kind of an extended farce. Because the initial setup is that Adam Sandler is this jeweler, and his main thing that he does is that he will constantly leverage debts and favors from people so that he can get a little bit more money, so that he can make high stakes bets, and they pay off often enough that he can usually get himself out of trouble. But the movie is kind of a sequence of events of him failing to do that and just kind of constantly getting into worse situations. And so you could actually see that leading to comedy.
Yeah. No, it's conflicting to watch, because you think, trading a precious gemstone to a rich basketballer for a, one of a kind ring is, that's a thing to happen. But then to immediately go down the road and pawn it off to the pawn shop for tens of thousands of dollars simply so you can throw a random bet on a basketball game is like, every part of my body was going, you're just asking for trouble here. This is not going to go well for you. And he seems to think time after time after time that he's sort of playing these odds, and it's going to work out for him the whole time. And he's very confident. And yeah, it's quite an experience, quite a journey to follow along with in that regard.
It's also, you said crap related to his business, and I think that is worth pointing out as well, is that he's a jeweler, but like a lot of the stuff that he has is, and I think this is quite deliberate, just like spectacularly horrible. There's like gold-plated Pokemon pendants and
like Furbies or something, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't Pokemon. It was Furbies with moving eyes on a pendant, and they're just the worst things you've ever seen.
Super tacky. Yeah. But it's the kind of gimmicky stuff that you can picture celebrities going for because they've got more money than sense, and they just know, like, that's the sort of thing they're going to buy. And so it's in that kind of world of, because is it Hollywood, LA, or is it? No, must have been Boston or the Celtics or something that it's set in.
I think it's Boston, but my sense of American like movie geography is not super great.
Yeah. Well, and so I guess like it's the epitome of kind of shady American wealth, where you've got this just people that have so much money, and like I guess coming from New Zealand with a slightly comparatively impoverished country where you've got just these movie style these people who are running shady businesses and just absolutely making this amazing money. Like the guy, Adam Sandler's character, he has an apartment and a house to his estranged wife, and a girlfriend on the side, and kids that are all over, family from all over the place who are all well-to-do and have rich jobs and things like that. And from my simple, humble backyard New Zealand beginnings, to me to try and fathom why on earth do they have so much money and then need to be doing all this shady kind of hitting big or like gambling with their lives kind of thing. It just blows my mind. And this is part of what makes the movie stressful, is when you're watching it from the beginning to the end and you're seeing these people just take these outrageous risks with money and with gambling and these gems and jewels, which alone are worth so much, and just throw them into the wind and see what happens. It just makes you gag a little. You just and your blood pressure's raised, and you're watching it from the first hour of it. You're going, oh my god, like what's going on? What is going on? And
there are. Right from the start, there are physical consequences for his character as well. Like one of the very early things that happens to him is that he gets hauled into a car and gets the shit beaten out of him, essentially, by someone who turns out to be like his brother-in-law.
Yes, and that took me a while to figure out. Is there's one kind of guy who's being very threatening in a very non-verbal way. Like he's got his hired goons, and his goons sort of manhandle him and move him around. And then there's one kind of guy in the background who's obviously the kingpin, because the goons like follow his word, and Adam's always pleading to him for another chance or whatever it might be, or tell him that his plan's going to work out. And the whole time you're sort of thinking like, who is this guy? You can kind of feel he's like a crime, but then for him to be related to him was another spin. Going like, how could you find yourself in this position with someone that you're related to, where they're getting hired thugs to beat the crap out of you?
I mean, it kind of feels to me like one of the things that's going on is that I can't remember, is it Sal, Adam Sandler's character's name? He thinks he's in a movie, but he thinks he's in the kind of movie where the big bet, does pay off in the end, and everyone learns a lesson and everything is solved by the final moves of the Deus Ex Machina coming in on his side or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like the roll of the dice, and any other Adam Sandler movie, that's what would happen. Like there'd be some miracle of chance that would end up being him successful, and the lessons that he's learned is nothing.
And I mean, we did mention that there is the potential of spoilers here. It's arguable that he does in fact learn nothing.
Yes.
He ends up getting basically executed because people have run out of patience with him at the end of this massive chain of ridiculous escapades. But at no point does
in which miraculously his big plan actually comes to fruition, only to have pissed off the people he is indebted to so much that they kill him anyway.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Like he's just become too much of a pain in the ass to be allowed to live, even though his big play is successful and they could make more money by doing what he wants.
Yeah. I liken it to like, and I guess it's kind of where those sort of reserve recommendation sort of things come into, where you're going like I can see this being a real thing. Like it's told in quite a realistic way. So, which is, I think, part of what makes it so stressful, and is unlike Adam Sandler, where a lot of his stories are just completely farcical and you're just kind of going along, and that's what makes them funny. But this is so far from funny. It's not. It's quite stressful watching this, because you can see how these sort of things are going to unfold. And in the end, I commend the movie for ending in probably what is quite a realistic way, where someone's just pushed above the edge, and it ends badly for Adam and his brother-in-law, and so. I think, it's kind of a thing where, if you're looking for a nice, relaxing, chill out night, it's probably not really the best recommendation you can give.
No, I mean, the thing that got me into watching it is that I'm kind of a sucker for movies about people being bad at crime. Like, that's a kind of subgenre.
Fargo or something like that.
Yeah, that's the one. It's that kind of subgenre of crime thriller. It, for whatever reason, really appeals to me. Just watching people try to do crimes and not be good at it, I find really appealing.
A favorite of mine was like Boondock Saints. I don't know if you've seen that one.
Yeah.
But it's classic of where just bumbling fools are kind of just end up accidentally being really good at crime.
And that's kind of where I thought it was going, at least initially, was that we were going to watch this guy kind of crash through all of this stuff and then eventually kind of resolve it somehow.
And I guess like, and what makes it a good movie is that it's so unlike, I guess, Adam Sandler or just Hollywood in general. It's really hard to tell where this thing's going. And you have to kind of persevere, because I was watching it with my girlfriend Emma, and we were sitting down and we're like, for the first 40 minutes, an hour of the movie, we're just trying to keep up with it and figure out where it was going. And by the second hour, we're like, as we got into that sort of second hour, we're like, are we enjoying this? Or are we not enjoying it? Like, are we going to keep going, or are we going to give up and go watch, another episode of New Girl? Like, is it? So we had to make some pretty stern decisions about whether we were going to persevere with this and see it through and see where it takes us, because, it's kind of like, it was just a conflicting experience where you're not quite sure if you're enjoying it. And at the end of it, after it was all, I have to say that I probably did enjoy it. And I think that's like testament to an interesting movie, that it doesn't start off with you knowing where you're going. And it takes that time for you to process it afterwards. And surely after I've watched the movie, I only watched it a couple of nights ago for the first time, and to have that time to process it and to think, like, was that a good movie? Would I watch it again? And would I recommend it to someone else? And hence my reason about putting that on Facebook was just to kind of, I guess, try to figure that out myself, because my question was going, like, when my post on Facebook was, I'm pretty sure that the script for Uncut Gems wasn't written entirely in caps, because there's just so many people shouting all the time. And I don't think, Adam Sandler must have needed 1,000 throat lozenges a day with that movie, because he does not stop shouting constantly. He's always yelling and arguing and things like, even if they go to a family party and they have a big, dinner party and they're meeting all the friends and cousins, he's still yelling and shouting, and they're watching a basketball game. He's yelling and shouting at that. It's stressful.
You make an interesting point about, there's a thing we can come back to about whether a movie needs to necessarily be fun in order to be enjoyable, or like, I guess, like the bet that the movie's taking against itself to say, like, we're going to be this difficult to watch for this long, and it's still going to be worth it if you stick with it. Because, that's a risk that the movie's taking of people just bailing after the first hour because they've just been screamed at by a sweaty Adam Sandler for ages and they don't know what's going on. The thing that strikes me about watching it again, which I haven't done, is that it might almost turn into like a classical tragedy, in the Greek sense, in the sense that you will know where it's going, and it will be entirely propelled by the characters just completely unable to stop themselves from wrecking themselves, and you'll be able to see it kind of building up and snowballing, and they will
kind of Shakespearean almost. Like this is a Shakespeare didn't pull punches. He's like, this is a tragedy. It's going to end badly.
Oh yeah, everyone dies.
This is how it happened. And I guess, like, if you're a bit more psychologically prepared for that, and you're going into it with that understanding that, this is a tragedy, and this is, and this is how it happened, then you're definitely going to, I guess, come at it with a different eye. And I think definitely that would happen. I'd certainly be on the lookout and understand a lot of the early characters beforehand and better, because you just don't have that time at the beginning of the film, because everything's so happening so quickly. And you do need to get that little time for your brain to just sort of recognize familiar faces and where they fit within the film.
Yeah, and I think that probably a thing that will happen, I don't know if this is a thing that I'll do, but probably a thing that would happen is that you would spot patterns of behavior earlier as well. Like the henchman who's finally had enough of everything is there right in the initial beating that happens in the car.
That's right. He's the most aggressive and the most, like, just, you can tell he's unhinged. Like, he's that. The other guy will do what he says, but the other guy is very much in the background compared to this one guy who's like a loose cannon. You can see that kind of right at the beginning. And that's and credit to the actor who played him, because I thought he did a remarkable job, because he just looked scary.
No, that's the one. You like, it's this guy's got so frustrated with his brother-in-law that he's hired in heavies, and he's inadvertently discovered like a genuinely evil, dangerous human being, and he doesn't really understand like how bad it is.
Yeah. He does. It's Pandora's box. Like, he's opened the box and let's see where it takes him.
Yeah. All right. Well, so we're around about at the halfway break point. So we're going to take a quick pause for station messages now, and we will be back right after this.
If you're a fan of NPR, listening to our podcasts and live stream has never been easier. Just search for accessmedia.nz on the App Store or Google Play and download the app with the kiwi fruit logo. Once you've got it, pick Manawatu People's Radio from the list of stations and go find your new favourite show. Support this show and others like it by giving a donation. For more information, go to www.mpr.nz/donate.
And we're back on Reserved Recommendations on Manawatu People's Radio, Te Reo Irirangi o ngā tangata o Manawatu. This evening I am talking to Brendan Christie about the movie Uncut Gems, which is a terrifying and stressful Adam Sandler movie that you can watch on Netflix if you have it right now. We've kind of been talking about the ways that it sort of sets up and then subverts what in another Adam Sandler movie would have been like the foundation of kind of a harmless farce comedy. I guess maybe a thing that we were talking about a little before the break that we can maybe get into now is like, do you think that there's a value in making a movie that's quite hard to watch? Like, certainly it's quite a risk for a filmmaker to take.
Yeah, certainly. But well, to answer your question, yes, definitely. And I think that's kind of one of the reasons why I've gone away and reflected on this movie and thought, like, I really didn't enjoy that, but did I enjoy it? And actually, I didn't enjoy the experience of watching it, but having watched it, I have enjoyed that experience, which is a really, really paradoxical kind of approach to a movie. Because I think that movies, what are their purposes is to make you feel something. And I think, and whatever emotion that sort of fits within, whether it's kind of like, it brings back emotions that I can relate to or not. But this movie definitely made me feel something. It really made me feel quite stressed, quite almost like angry, and all the emotions on what would normally be called the negative spectrum of our emotional spectrum, I suppose. So, and it's interesting to have a movie that is directly focused on that end of the spectrum. They're not about making you feel good. They've got enough movies that do that. So to have a movie that is actually directing at making you feel stressed, feel fearful, feel anger, feel scared or whatever, is really quite unique. And I guess that is upon reflection about going back after I've seen this film and all the tumultuous events that happen within it. I think definitely that is one. I enjoyed it because it fits within that area. And it's one of the few movies that I could probably name to you that actually does.
Yeah. I mean, it reminds me of that thing because there's been a lot of ink, both literal and virtual, spilled about the question of like, why do humans like scary stories? Why do we like tragedies? Why do we like sad stories? Why are we suckers for stories where bad things happen, sometimes to good people? And one of the ideas about that is that it's a chance for us to feel those things while remaining relatively safe. Like if you've got a bad heart condition and it's not well controlled, probably don't watch this movie because your blood pressure will probably go up. But you're a lot safer than Adam Sandler's character is. You're not personally being shoved into cars and beaten up and threatened and thrown in fountains and having to hustle and leverage debts against debts. And
if it is something that you're familiar with, seek help.
Get out of that situation as quickly as you can.
Please do, for the sake of us all. Yeah, thank you.
And I mean, he kind of does the same thing with all of his relationships as well. He's got an ex-wife who he's clearly burned out by just being that character too much. And a girlfriend who's kind of going the same way and is just kind of holding on for the money.
Yeah, she likes the thrill, I think, and it's kind of and God, I mean, there's so many stories about relationships like this where once the thrill is gone, they part separate ways. But as long as they're sort of being really edgy or on the verge of breaking up, but all this kind of thing that's going on, it makes it it's something that's addictive, I suppose, and that's that adrenaline junkie kind of personality, especially that the characters are sort of throwing into the mix, is going, well, this is who he is, and he to ask him to do any other way, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. And interestingly, because this is it's kind of noir adjacent, in the sense that it's concerned with a definite crime world. No one who is in the movie is in any way pure in either a legal or moral sense. Everyone is up to something.
Everyone's to blame. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know about the wife. I feel for the wife. she gets a raw deal, but then I suppose she married him, right?
She does. She did marry him. She's also like the one of the characters at the least direct personal risk, because he does manage to keep her out of the way of the actually dangerous people. I guess where I was going with this is that noir doesn't necessarily have a very good rep for good things happening to female characters, and the girlfriend actually makes her way out of the movie reasonably well, which is kind of refreshing.
Like if anyone wins, it's her, really, isn't it? Yeah. Which was, I guess, again, another point of the unpredictableness of this movie, where you naturally don't gravitate towards her being the one that's going to come out on top in this. But yet it does.
Yeah, and I suspect it's kind of using that expectation against you, especially since it sets her up in that situation with the really kind of creepy older gentleman at the end who's clearly far too interested in her. Like it's teasing very heavily that something really bad is going to happen there, but she kind of manages to charm her way out of the situation successfully.
Exactly. Yeah, it was kind of like, and I was expecting it to go Coen Brothers, where everything turns to shit for everyone. So, but it actually, again, it's like you say, maybe that was the prerogative of the movie, is to do whatever the viewer is expecting to happen, even though they are leading you down that path, but then 180 it and actually not do what you're expecting it to do. So when she was going through this kind of horrific, I guess, being wooed by this older man in a casino and so many, if anyone's been to Las Vegas, you'll know exactly what it's like. It's seedy. There's older people with a lot of money. There's younger women who take advantage of that fact. And, in this area where, he's approaching her, and she actually uses him to her advantage in the end to actually maintain her safety when it could have gone a lot worse for her. So it takes her down this pathway of there potentially being a real her getting caught and everything going badly for her, but then again, just it's a bit of a red herring where it doesn't actually take you with the direction that things should do. So again, you're surprised by the end of the movie and the way it ends. Yeah.
Do you reckon that in the fictional universe of this movie, immediately after the movie ends, she goes on to become like the next version of the Adam Sandler character, having like successfully carried off this big job and like won? Does she get sucked into thinking that she can do it over and over again?
Yeah, I just don't see her as that kind of personality. So, I mean, I think like Adam Sandler exemplifies a character who is the shyster who's been brought up around shysters, who is someone whose entire livelihood is about a big hit. He commonly talking about it's going to hit, and the whole kind of concept of playing for big money, and I feel like he is a product of that whole environment that he's in, not just his family, his direct family, which I think are very much that case as well. They're all high-rolling bankers or lawyers or stuff like that as well, which they have a lot of disposable income. But also the fact that he's gotten into the jewelry business, where jewelry is where people who have a lot of money throw a lot of money into jewelry and things like that, just simply so they can have it. So he's kind of surrounded his entire lifestyle with that environment, but I don't feel that she will have that. If anything, she might squander the money and it'll go nowhere, and she might invest it poorly or blow it all in the casino herself. But not in the same way that the entire livelihood of Adam in this point was completely surrounded by that sort of culture of big risk money. Yeah.
I mean, it's an interesting point you make about his family, and it kind of, I want to go back a step to the idea about tragedy, I suppose, is that I almost got the sense that he was almost the odd one out amongst his family, because they were all very well off, but being like a doctor or a lawyer or I suppose being a banker is kind of risky, but it doesn't necessarily have to be.
So actually, no, that's fair enough. Yeah,
and so the super risky way that he does everything is kind of a choice of his, because you could even be a less risky kind of jeweler if you wanted to.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. No, that's fair enough, and I think I guess what I'm talking about is that there's a family and a culture of wealth around him, and that kind of disposable. Even though that the rest of his family and extended family are well-to-do people and probably hold completely honest businesses, because we don't get a lot of information about them really. But to have that kind of surrounding of wealth and expectation and I guess culture around having money and knowing what to do with it is surrounds him and sort of makes him is the product of what he is, his surroundings, and kind of leads him or drives him down that road to get the big bucks, or that big hit, that big score that he's been trying to get so far, which probably drives a lot of problem gamblers in life, when they might be surrounded by people who are very well off, and they're just trying to get that step in front of them, where they're playing, keeping up with the Joneses and having that new car or new something, where actually, it's not possible in the way that he's living his life.
And I mean, more than that, he's driven by the need to win. He has to not just be well off, he has to be more well off than everybody else, because he was smarter than them specifically.
Yes. Yeah. Because he talks a lot about in the film about showing others, doesn't he? Or I guess waiting, just proving himself, I think. And I guess it's that case of point where he's done so many people wrong that he's trying to undo and to earn back their trust naively, because that's never going to happen. Even if he makes this big hit and he proves everyone that he can make a lot of money, he's never going to get their respect. He's never going to get their trust. So therefore, his whole mission, I guess, is pretty pointless. It's never going to end well for him.
Yeah. All right. Well, look. Thank you for talking about this incredibly anxious and stressful movie. There are two things I like to do to finish these episodes off, and the first one is to ask if you have any recommendations for extra reading or extra watching or listening. If someone has watched Uncut Gems and they went, you know what, feeling really horrible for 2 hours and then thinking hard about whether I enjoyed this movie, that's my thing now. Is there anything else like that?
It's actually, yeah, like it's funny when you sort of go down this rabbit hole of trying to think of movies that make you feel like shit for for 2 hours and then don't end well at all, and you end up going, well, what the hell was that about? There was one film that I years ago I had a Swedish flatmate who lent me a DVD of a Swedish film called Lilja Forever. And I cannot remember for the life of me if I've seen an ever more depressing film. Like, it was horrible. It was horrible. It was about a Russian girl who gets trafficked to Sweden as a sex slave, and it's horrible. And it's just this kind of story where she's going from out of like one bad situation into another bad situation to an even worse situation. And it's in subtitles, but it's very watchable. It held me through the whole thing, yet I didn't enjoy a single minute of it. And I think if you did, am I a better person for watching it? Well, I don't know, but I think that's a good. I'd recommend Lilja Forever if you can find it. I don't know where you'd find it, but it must be out there somewhere. And that's definitely one that comes to mind in terms of what are there any films where you just you watch the whole thing and don't feel good about it at any stage?
So I have, I guess, two thoughts occurred to me, and one's like a serious time commitment, and the other one is pretty easy to watch. So the easy to watch one would be Requiem for a Dream, if people haven't seen that. It's the story of two young people in love who just happen to be junkies, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And it's got that same. It's not the same in the sense that the characters are like Adam Sandler, because they initially start as very engaging and likable, and you're 100% on their side and want things to work out for them. But it does have that sense where you can see it getting worse and they can't. And pretty much everyone in that movie has things end badly for them, even fairly minor characters.
Another one that a classic one I thought was like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yeah. Yep.
Where it kind of, it's not an enjoyable experience, and then at the end of it, it doesn't end very well, but it's a really good movie at the same time.
Yeah, that's much more ambivalent than Uncut Gems or Requiem, which are both kind of relentlessly horrible once they start to bite in. But you're right. I mean, that's certainly one where the more you think about it, the worse it gets. The other thing that I guess I would recommend, if people have like time to watch 26 episodes of something plus a movie plus maybe go and read a comic as well for context, and they're into anime.
Star Wars trilogy.
No.
Right.
And they're into anime is a show called Neon Genesis Evangelion, which is so it's on Netflix as well. It came out in the mid-90s, but has just had like a flash new retranslation for Netflix. Basically, it's the future because it was made in 1996, but actually it's set in like 2016. It's one of those like the world ended 5 years ago, but we're still watching this thing that's technically set in the past now, kind of like Blade Runner. The world is under attack by giant incomprehensible aliens called angels, and their only line of defense are giant robot fighting suits called Evangelion or Avas. And the catch is that they have to be piloted by like 12-year-olds. And that's quite normal for giant robot shows of that time. Like Gundam and all of those series all had their pilots be like 12-year-olds for reasons I don't really understand. But Evangelion really leans into the fact that this is a show about child soldiers. And then about halfway through, it does a massive kind of hairpin bend in terms of what's actually going on and what the show's about. And it suddenly becomes about the insides of all the characters' heads and gets nightmarishly introspective for like 13 episodes.
Wow.
And then what happened was that there were a final 2 episodes that had to be redone almost on the fly because they were too similar to the sarin gas attack that happened in the Tokyo subway. So they couldn't broadcast something like that. And what they came up with was this really strange, abstract kind of tone poem to finish things off with. And fans hated it and sent them death threats and threatened to burn the studio down. So they made like a 2-hour movie that replaces those final... Well, replaces is an alternative version of the final 2 episodes where it's just like everyone is their worst possible self in a way that's like a direct insult to the fans and everything ends badly for everyone.
Amazing.
It's really good if you like that sort of thing, but you get 13 episodes of escalating anxiety attack and then a 2-hour movie that is angry at you for watching it. So
it's like working out in the gym and never losing any weight. You get all the pain. You get all the pain and nothing rewarding from it.
I mean, like Uncut Gems and like these other things, you get to the end of it and you go, I think that was probably worth watching. I find myself thinking about it quite a lot for a series from the mid-90s of giant cartoon robots. But yeah, it's certainly a thing. Well, thank you for that. The last thing I like to do is give you a chance to plug anything that you have going on, that you have on the internet. I know that you're in a band, so people can go and find your music. That's one thing.
Yes, I do. So I'm involved with a couple of, cultural events, if you will. I'm in a band called the Mentalist Collective. We're kind of a collection of 5 songwriters, and we all get together and influence our own music. And so we're kind of the best genre description might be kind of indie folk. Do a lot of singing, a lot of harmonies, and down here in Dunedin. And we're working on an EP currently. So if you feel like listening to some new music, and especially local music, we're down in Dunedin, and we have a Facebook page and a website and all that kind of jazz. And we're on Spotify as well if you'd like to look us up.
And Bandcamp, if people want to throw you money directly to buy downloads and all that stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll take your money if you really no, that would be great. I'm also quite involved with a lot of music festivals and events in Dunedin down here. So if you're down our way and you're in Dunedin during May, we have a music festival at the library here called the Nook and Cranny Music Festival. And that's basically a celebration of all the local musicians that are in our backyard. We put about 30 or 40 bands, sometimes even 50, between the book stacks of the library and in the elevators and on top of tables and things like that. And we just basically flood the whole library with music. And so if that sounds like your cup of tea, please do look it up. Also, I'm involved with a few other things. We have like a dance festival in Dunedin called the Midwinter Swing Festival, which we have every year in June usually, but that sort of varies from time to time. And also we have a big, large street party called the Vogel Street Party, which I'm the chairperson of as well. So, and doing that on top of being a teacher keeps me pretty busy. So, if you're ever come down to Dunedin or ever in the city, please do look up those things because they might be your cup of tea, and it'd be great to have you.
Excellent. And a lot of the Nook and Cranny stuff, if I remember rightly, finds its way onto YouTube as well.
That's correct. Yeah. So like we basically film every artist that performs at the Nook and Cranny, and we put it up on our YouTube channel. And and it'll be like sometimes anywhere from a full performance to a single song of theirs that we edit and put up. this year was a bit interesting because we went entirely live streamed and just put the whole, we sort of got everyone from around the city and actually as far as Los Angeles to come and stream in and perform for us live. And so we actually have a video available of that too as well. So it was really fun. And well, the way lockdowns are going these days, I think maybe that might be more of a common scenario where we're having to live stream in artists rather than having them in one big festival. But hopefully for not too much longer.
Excellent. Well, yeah, no, I hope that I'm head of sound for the Wellington Folk Festival in October, and we're trying to figure out if that's like happening at this stage.
Yeah.
That's speaking of stressful
that whole
nonsense.
Big unknown thing.
Yeah. Excellent. Well,
I've had a lot of very productive conversations with my committees and things going, should we just not do it? And people are pretty keen to say, yeah, let's not do it, which is a real shame. But yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, no,
it'll get better.
You got to try and be responsible about these things, all of that stuff. Well, look, thank you very much for talking today, Brendan. That was great.
Thanks, you.
You've been listening to Reserved Recommendations, a radio show and podcast from Manawatu People's Radio, Te Reo Irirangi o ngā tangata o Manawatu. The show is produced and presented by me, Hugh Dingwall, and I also composed our theme music. It's called Sack Jazz, and you can find it at wolfboy.bandcamp.com. You can find me on the internet at Objective Realty on Twitter, and you can find the show on Facebook under Reserved Recommendations. If you've got a reserved recommendation of your own, feel free to pitch it to me in either of those two places. And if you enjoyed the show, why not go ahead and recommend it to a friend? You can find past episodes at www.mpr.nz/show/reserved on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, Manawatu People's Radio is a non-profit radio station. If you enjoy this or any of their other fine audio programming, why not fling them a couple of dollars? Go to mpr.nz/donate for more information.